Today, we will start a new chapter from English Literature for Class 6. The name of the chapter is The Land of Counterpane, written by Robert Louis Stevenson. That means R.L. Stevenson. This chapter has been taken from Learning English. This poem describes about a child who plays with toy soldiers while sick in bed. This poem is describing the happy experiences of a child. But before that, we will know about R.L. Stevenson. That means Robert Louis Stevenson. He was a Scottish novelist, poet, and travel writer, most noted for Treasure Island, Kidnap, Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and A Child's Garden of Verses. Born and educated in Edinburgh, Stevenson suffered from serious bronchial trouble for much of his life, but continued to write profusely and travel widely in defense of his poor health. As a young man, he mixed in London literary circles, receiving encouragement from Andrew Lang, Edmund Gosse, Leslie Stephen, and W. E. Henley, the last of whom may have provided the model for Long Joe Silver in Treasure Island. In 1890, he settled in Samoa, where he died in 1894 at the age of 44. A celebrity in his lifetime, Stevenson's critical reputation has fluctuated since his death, though today his works are held in general acclaim. He is currently ranked as the 26th most translated author in the world. Stevenson was born at 8 Hogwood Place, Edinburgh, Scotland on 30th November 1850 to Thomas Stevenson, a leading lighthouse engineer, and his wife Margaret Isabella. Lighthouse design was the family's profession. Stevenson was a only child, both strange looking and eccentric, and he found it hard to fit in when he was sent to a nearby school at age 6. A problem repeated at age 11 when he went to Edinburgh Academy, but he mixed well in lively games with his cousins in summer holidays at Colinton. His frequent illness often kept him away from his first school, so he was taught for long stretches by private tutors. He was a late reader learning at age 7 or 8. But even before this, he dictated stories to his mother and nurse, and he compulsively wrote stories throughout his childhood. His father was proud of this interest. He had also written stories in his spare time until his own father found them. He paid for the printing of Robert's first publication at 16, entitled The Pentland Rising, a page of history, 1666. It was an account of the Covenanters' Rebellion, which was published in 1866, the 200th anniversary of the event. In September 1857, Stevenson went to Mr. Henderson's school in India Street, Edinburgh, but because of poor health, stayed only a few weeks and did not return until October 1859. During his many absences, he was taught by private tutors. In October 1861, he went to Edinburgh Academy, an independent school for boys, and stayed there for about 15 months. In November 1867, Stevenson entered the University of Edinburgh to study engineering. He showed from the start no enthusiasm for his studies and devoted much energy to avoid lectures. This time was more important for the friendships he made with other students, particularly with Charles Baxter, who would become Stevenson's financial agent, and with a professor whose house staged amateur drama in which Stevenson took part and whose biography he would later write. Perhaps most important at this point in his life was a cousin, Alan Montbray Stevenson, a lively and light-hearted young man who, instead of the family profession, had chosen to study art. Stevenson was soon active in London literary life, becoming acquainted with many of the writers of time, including Andrew Lang, Leslie Stephen. Stephen took Stevenson to visit a patient at the Edinburgh infirmary named William Ernest Henley, an energetic and talkative man with a wooden leg. Henley became a close friend and occasional literary collaborator until a quarrel broke up the friendship in 1888, and he is often considered to be the model for Long John Silver in Treasure Island. Clear, students? Now, We will start the poem. Please follow this. When I was sick and lay abed, I had two pillows at my head, and all my toys beside me lay to keep me happy all the day. And sometimes for an hour or so I watched my leaden soldiers go with different uniforms and drills among the bedclothes through the hills, and sometimes sent my ships in fleets all up and down among the shades, or brought my trees and houses out and planted cities all about. I was the giant great and still. This sits upon the pillow hill, and sees before him dell and plain the pleasant land of Counterpane. Now I will explain this poem stanza by stanza. When I was sick and lay abed, I had two pillows at my head, and all my toys beside me lay to keep me happy all the day. So, students, the poet has written this poem like he himself is the child who is experiencing all these wonderful experiences. It reads as if the poem child, this I of the poem, really was Stevenson, who lived and then relived this land of counterpane situation through verse, as he was at times a sickly, bedbound child. A child's garden of verses is dedicated to his nurse or nanny, Alison. First of all, we have to know the meaning of counterpane. It means a cover for a bedspread, origin of counterpane, alteration of obsolete counterpoint from Middle English counterpoint, from Old French counterpoint, alternation of counterpoint from medieval Latin word. So, in this stanza, we can see that the poet is saying that the boy was facing illness and he was lying on the bed. He had two pillows at his head. That means no other things were there with the boy. Only these two pillows were giving the company to the boys. The boy had so many toys with him for playing. At that miserable condition, the toys were trying to cheer him up. The toys were trying to do their best to make the boy happy. The toys were thinking that in this way the boy can be happy and he would forget all of his sadness. Clear? Next stanza. And sometimes for an hour or so I watched my leaden soldiers go with different uniforms and drills among the bedclothes through the hills. So, students, You are getting one word over here. That is laden. What is the meaning of laden? Laden is an adjective over here. It means intensely heavy, like lead, hard to lift or move. A leaden weight, leaden feet, dull, spiritless, or gloomy, as in mood or thought, leaden prose, or leaden atmosphere. In his illness, the boy was enjoying the movements of the toy soldiers, which were quite happy. They were doing their duties to make the boy happy. The toy soldiers were moving from one side to another of the bed. They have worn difficult type of uniforms. Sorry, they have worn different type of uniforms. We all know that the soldiers are expert in doing drills. What is that? Drill and practice is a disciplined and repetitions exercise used as a mean of teaching and perfecting a skill or procedure. Similar to memorization, drill and practice involves repetition of specific skills, such as spelling or multiplication. So, the soldiers were doing the words through the hills among the bedsheds. Next stanza. And sometimes sent my ships in fleets all up and down among the sheds, or brought my trees and houses out and planted cities all about. In this third stanza, we can see that there were some toy ships on the bed of the boy. They were moving in fleets. What is the meaning of the word fleet? Fleet means a group of ships sailing together, engaged in the same activity or under the same ownership. A number of naval vessels or vessels carrying armed crew members. A large group of ships, airplanes, trucks, etc., operated by a single company or under the same ownership. Any vehicle used for work counts as a fleet vehicle. Fleet vehicles are mainly used to transport people or goods. True branded ones can also serve as mobile advertisement. Okay, let's get back to the third stanza. The ships were moving in group on the bed of the boy. There were some toy trees and toy houses on the bed sheets. The trees and houses were trying to make a good toy city by planting. It was successful to make this toy city. Next stanza. I was the giant great and still that sits upon the pillow hill and sees before him dell and plain the pleasant land of Counterpane. In the fourth stanza, the boy was calling himself the giant great because there were all the toys on the bed except the little boy. So the boy was thinking himself as a big thing. He was sitting on the bed along with the pillow hill. It was looking like a dell. So what is the meaning of dell? Dell means a valley especially in northern England. Dell is a valley. It is a topographic name for someone who lived in a valley, or habitational name from any of the numerous minor places named with this word, such as Dell in Cumbria and Yorkshire. This word Dell comes from the Old English word dill, from which the word tell is also delivered. It may perhaps have influenced its survival in northern England. So the boy could see the picture clearly on the bed. The toys were making their setup on the bed like a pleasant or gentle land of counterpane, and the boy was satisfied to see that scenario. So, students, please go through this poem clearly and try to read it again and again. So, now I will give you some questions over here and you will try by yourself. You can see that this is the page of questionnaire. First of all, I'll give the instruction. Please follow it. Answer the following questions. Number 1. Who is the poet of the poem The Land of Counterpane? Number 2. Quote the line from the poem that tells you how the poet lay in bed when he was sick. Number 3. Quote the line from the poem that tells you what he watches his toy soldiers doing. Next, number 4. Quote the line from the poem that tells you how the fleet goes. Next one. Number 5. Quote the line from the poem that tells you what the poet imagines himself to be. So, students, try to write these questions from your own side. Clear? So, today we are ending our lesson over here. Thank you.